southern Arizona is this particularly great spot where we're the southernmost extent of a lot of the American species, the North American species, and we're also the northernmost extent of the Mexican, Central American species. And it all crosses over right here.
Feels like I've gone to a foreign country.
It's different.
It feels exotic. It looks empty.
Oh, yeah. Looks completely void of animal life. I mean, and everything down here wants to kill you. Maybe not kill you, but hurt you.
The jackrabbits are legendary. Seriously, these jackrabbits have swagger.
Yeah.
They walk around, they bounce around with attitude. Sam, what is your impression hunting these deer?
Do you want me to be honest? Or,
yeah, totally.
You should use a rifle.
There was a crane, which, by the way, oh my gosh.
Yeah, we got to talk a little bit about crane.
Oh my gosh. Crane is like my new favorite meat. Hey, wait, there's like a monkey thing out here. And he's like, that's a Coatimundi. That thing came charging through the grass at me like it was on full attack. And just growling. All right, folks. Welcome to the Gritty Bowman podcast. We are in beautiful Arizona, and I am joined by Jonathan Odell from Arizona Fish and Game.
Arizona Game and Fish.
From Arizona Game and Fish.
The name matters.
But how come?
Do you know why? It's so we actually have more game than fish, and so that's why it leads. And so there's very few state agencies that are game and fish versus fish and game, and so everyone always misidentifies this as fish and game. So Wyoming is game and fish, and I believe New Mexico.
Wow.
South Dakota
but
as well. Game, fish, and parks. So
right,
yeah.
I did not know that. Now, folks, you have been learned.
We're starting
educated.
Off hot. There's new topics every time.
That's right. This is very educational.
Yeah. And I'm joined by my newfound friend, Sam Soholt, hunting partner extraordinaire. We have been like the duo.
Yeah.
Out there.
This whole trip.
Maybe
not today, but the rest of the trip.
Yeah, you were like man down today.
Yeah. Caught a little of the SHOT Show black lung.
so bad.
Feeling better now.
Yeah, so let's tell folks where we're at. Where are we, Sam?
So we are in southern Arizona, pretty close to the Mexican border, chasing all things moving, really. I mean, we can call it a
except illegals.
Well, yeah. Haven't seen any of those yet.
No, we haven't.
I mean, we could call it a Coues hunt, but we have really hunted everything.
Yeah, everything's up for grabs. Feels like.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's super cool about this hunt.
Yeah, we're here in January. The weather's fantastic. There's a lot of things open when you're coming. I mean, you don't want to be, shoveling snow at home up in the North Country right now. You can shovel sunshine down here, which is awesome.
We're like in La Hacienda.
Yeah, we got this great little hacienda here, and but yeah, I mean, there's so many things open. We just finished out duck season yesterday. It's funny in the morning after we all eat breakfast and like, okay, we're going here, we're doing, and everyone's kind of doing a different thing, and we're coming back with these like, odd bags of things, and so it's just opportunity is we can find you something if you come here in January.
Yeah. Well, before we get into that, because I want to dive into all these opportunities that we have that are here in Arizona, what you and I are experiencing so far, being first timers.
Yeah.
Folks, hold on, because there is a monkey involved and some other things, or a monkey-like critter, along with pigs, skunk pigs, stink pigs.
Stink pigs?
Stink pigs. Skunk pigs.
Skunk pigs usually, yeah.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of people made fun of me because I called them skunk pigs online. They're like, they're stink pigs, you dummy. And it's like, well, Wikipedia said skunk pig, and other people call them skunk pig. Man. So anyway, we'll get into that.
That's not the first naming argument we've already solved on down here. So.
Yeah,
okay,
that's right.
We'll dive into that. But first, Sam, tell people who you are.
I am Sam Soholt. I am a professional photographer in the hunting industry. more recently known as the guy who bought a school bus. I've actually walking around ATA and SHOT Show the last couple weeks. I have only heard, "Oh, you're the bus guy." So I bought
not the photographer,
not anything else. I'm the bus guy now, which isn't terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I did buy a school bus, converted into my rolling hunting cabin, and I've been traveling in that. So.
And it's legit.
Yeah, I'm still kicking myself for not driving it all the way down here, but I would have had to leave on New Year's Day. So.
Yeah, I guess it's the other side of the nation.
Yeah.
So, okay. And we're going to get into Sam's story on another podcast. But that's what you get right now, folks. That's Sam. And Jonathan.
You bet. I'm Jonathan Odell. I'm the small game biologist for the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Been working with the department for 12 years and in small game since, let's see, this is, I think, year 7 now. And had started out originally doing a lot of the upland stuff, the rabbits and the pheasants and the quail and the chuckers and the squirrels and all that. And more recently with my boss Wade coming on, he had a real interest in obviously quail hunting and stuff, and I just wanted to grow, and so I've been watching the migratory bird world from the outside. And so finally Wade's like, well, do you want to take that on? I'm like going, yeah, that would be absolutely fun. But pretty much I don't think there's anything Wade and I don't work on together. Usually it's not always a one-man show. It's a two-man show for the small game program. So, yeah, it's been spectacular. So, I'm the representative of the Pacific Flyway for Arizona and get to deal with these issues on a continental scale with migratory birds and stuff. So, but to be honest with you, I mean, I manage, Arizona's known for these great big elk and the mule deer and the Coues deer and the, everything you kind of go around. And I'm sitting here trying to convince everyone, I'm like the small game state, man. Like this is like, I have so much variety and diversity. I'm better than anywhere else, man. I guarantee I've got more species than most any other state out there. So,
right. Which is really interesting because there also, what I find down here is feels like I've gone to a foreign country.
It's different.
It feels exotic. Like it's not like anything anywhere I've ever been today. For example, while I was trying to kill the world's miniature deer called the Coues, the Coues.
Well, and if you want to start into that conversation, you certainly can. There's a lot of issues with naming things. And most popularly, the hunters call them Coues deer. Mm-hmm. You'll hear me call them Coues deer because that's just kind of the regionality, the flair for it. The deer was named after a great naturalist named Elliot Coues. His name is pronounced like house. People would mispronounce all the time saying cows like a cow, kind of that hard Z on the end,
right.
but it's pronounced Coues. That's the French pronunciation, of his name. And it was named, he was, one of the early ones to actually identify that it was a different, deer than the normal whitetail, had written it up. And one of his, predecessors and a person who, he'd mentored and was, familiar with was Edgar Mearns. Who was down here in Arizona. And so he actually wrote the paper that finally determined the name where he named it after Elliot, one of his person he held in high esteem. So
about what time frame was this?
So that was, I believe that was during quadrupeds of Arizona. So like 18, wow, that was a long time. It was probably 1860s, 1870s.
Wow.
It was pretty, the Apache Wars were still going on here. We weren't even a state, still the territories and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, Edgar Mearns was down here doing, he was an army surgeon, who also had a penchant for being a naturalist. And he did a survey of his paper was called The Survey of the Mexican Boundary States, one of the big significant works. And we finally got a copy from the Smithsonian of his original journal, and it sits on my desk, just as kind of reference.
Very cool.
He rode from, Fort Whipple, which is now current day Prescott, Arizona, all the way to Deming, New Mexico, and just went along and tried to describe and encapsulate all the different species he ran into along this survey. biologically of all the different animals and things that he ran, and birds and you name it. So it's kind of a fascinating read to see what he saw back then and kind of revisit some of those areas and do we see him today or not? So.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Sam, when you look out across the landscape when we depart on our morning adventures, it looks empty.
Oh, yeah. Looks completely void of animal life. I mean, and everything down here wants to kill you. Maybe not kill you, but hurt you. I mean, the first time, we went on that first stalk and just hiking across that, down that one ridge or whatever, like we both came back bloody. So, I mean, every little plant and stick and whatever wants to hurt you. And yeah, I mean, unless you're sitting down for a long period of time looking over huge amounts of country, you wouldn't think anything lived here.
Right. Yeah. But then you get out and you get the glass on it and there's animals all over.
Yeah.
You're finding stuff constantly and they're unique. Like I'm looking at the birds and all the different ones all the different, like, what do you call them? Songbirds and stuff?
Oh,
like,
yeah. The desert grassland birds.
Unidentified brown birds.
Yeah.
The little ones.
Yeah.
Well, and the reason for that is we're in southern Arizona is this particularly great spot where we're the southernmost extent of a lot of the American species and North American species, and we're also the northernmost extent of the Mexican, Central American species. And it all crosses over right here. And so you get to see this wide diversity. Actually a little bit further to the east, the Chiricahua Mountains in southeastern Arizona is the highest biological diversity in North America. There are so many rare, not even rare, but just endemic species that occur in that. Like you don't see that high of biological diversity again until you get all the way down to Central America.
Right.
Where you jungles and all that stuff. And so, Arizona's the convergence of all 4 North American deserts. They all come together here, and the Sonoran is such a wonderful desert. It's the most diverse. Hank Shaw, who's down here with us as well, he mentioned, he's like, this is probably the only desert where you can get fat.
That's a pretty good point.
It doesn't matter whether it's people, the animals, anything else. There's so much here. It's so lush and vibrant. And you're right. You can't see it at first, but all of a sudden, things start coming out of the woodwork, per se, and really reveal themselves to you out here. So
the jackrabbits are legendary.
Giant. Just
the first time Sam saw one, he came undone.
Yeah, well, I thought it was 2 deer running away.
Because they got the white tails.
Yeah, and we pulled up and we parked and hopped out of the truck, and there's, some bushes near us or whatever, and all of a sudden I see just 2 white tails just, like, heading out, bounding, and I was like, I thought we had just scared a couple deer off the road, but no, it was just 2, like, 10-pound jackrabbits.
Yeah, I always laugh because I'm like, I shoot jackrabbits bigger than Coues deer.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah. Tell me about the jackrabbits. And there's this. I watch Meat Eater. And Stephen Ranella had Hank Shaw. Like you mentioned, he's here in camp, and he's just a phenomenal cook and of wild game. And we'll have Shank on. We'll have Hank on as well.
Shank, you're thinking about your deer already.
Hank Shaw.
He has a great recipe for Shank. So
we'll have Hank on, and we'll pick his brain on that. But tell me about these jackrabbit, and they're notoriously not for eating. People will talk about that.
Hunters, it's pretty amazing coming from the small game side of things. That even the most hardcore hunter will turn up his nose at a jackrabbit. And even, you hear all these mythos and legends, oh my gosh, don't shoot rabbits until after the first frost or after the first snow, months that end in R, the Tuesday after a full moon in February. I've heard everything. And, it's fascinating. I think, to me, when you look at rabbits, cottontails and the jackrabbits or the hares, there's no more or less disease or parasites in the summer than there is in the winter, near as we can tell.
Right.
They just didn't pay attention in high school biology. Things grow in the summer. It's kind of the first lesson you learn. Well, guess what? Parasites grow as well. They get big. And so they're more visible in the warmer months. in these cooler times, you don't get to see the big parasites because likely what they've done is laid eggs and left.
Yeah.
And so now you have these really small things you may not be able to see. But it's really another, I mean, we're here in Arizona. Mm-hmm. First of all, it doesn't frost.
Yeah.
Pretty much it doesn't snow. And so these things, and we're not even in a month that ends in R. So I don't know if we even have months that end in R anymore. But these jackrabbits, so we have the black-tailed jackrabbit, which is very common. It's a widespread from about Mississippi or about Missouri clear to California. It's through a lot of the middle of the country.
Yeah.
A lot of what people see. But the antelope jackrabbit, which is only here, extends just up into just below Phoenix as a point and then comes down straight down into Mexico. And so we have it's pretty much its eastern extent is the Huachuca Mountains and the western extent here is the Babiquivries. And they're just kind of in this little funnel. But they're a wonderful, they're wonderful table fare. A lot of the problem, I think, with the jackrabbit issue is, a lot of times I hear toughness. And a jackrabbit has 7 muscle groups in each one of its hindquarters. 7. Whoa. And they're all covered in silver skin, just like you'd find on an elk or deer. And that silver skin, when you cook it, gets hard. And man, does it get tough. So you have to spend a little bit extra time, particularly on the hind legs, which is where a lot of the meat is, just really working to get that silver skin off. And the toughness goes away. And probably even some of the poor taste you might find in blacktails. Black-tailed jackrabbits, interestingly, are the only species I know of that, if there is literally nothing to eat, they're in a really harsh environment, they actually eat some creosote. And process. It's an amazing thing.
Wow.
It's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, that they can do that. And so I think maybe some of those, the off-putting taste, might be, I think it's in the silver skin based on what they're eating. Now these antelope jackrabbits, let me tell you what, if you are what you eat, antelope jackrabbits are the place to be because they eat mesquite beans, they eat cactus fruits, they eat just the bottom nubs of the grass. They don't eat the whole grass, just where the fresh shoots are coming up out of the bottom. They'll sometimes eat the pads off them. But if you've ever had a mesquite bean, they're to me, that's like Arizona's nature candy.
Yeah.
When you're out here, when the pods are in season and they're dried up, really early quail season, you'll find them. You go out walking, you just pick one off the tree, nice and hard. Look at it, make sure, the bugs haven't bored in there. Just break a piece off and throw it in your mouth and let saliva do its work. It's like brown sugar. Mm-hmm. They have a high sugar content. The seeds are about as hard as rocks. Don't try and chew it. You'll break your teeth. But, and so these rabbits are just eating this wonderful meat. And of course, as large as they are, as you've seen, their back straps are huge.
Yeah.
They're a full meal all on their own. And the hindquarters and I've actually served jackrabbit to our state legislature. Made up a bunch of summer sausage. One year we do an event every year where we have to educate all our new legislators on how we're funded and hey, this money, we can't misappropriate because the federal will take away all our Pittman Robertson dollars.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this neat thing, but we always, the Game Ranger Lodge cooks them up a big wild game, donated meat the department does. And so they have elk albondigas soup and they have javelina beans and a lot of things. And the commission asked me to go down there a couple of years and just like, hey, do some crazy hors d'oeuvres, some different stuff. And so I was like, jackrabbit's about, strange as it might come to some people, but it's, we made a bunch of summer sausage. It was fantastic. Obviously you haven't heard any news reports of the Arizona legislature being poisoned by some crazy guy.
Well, when Hank was on Meat Eater, Steven was talking about how, he hasn't really been able to get any that taste really great and all of that. And then Hank went and made a meal out of it, a couple of different meals actually, and proved him wrong.
Yeah.
That these are very, very tasty.
Yeah.
Well, it's been cool for me to be on this trip because it's really opened my eyes to how, I would have never even, cottontail maybe, but jackrabbit I would have never even thought of cooking. Because all I've ever heard was all the rumors, you just don't eat them. And not to mention they stink pretty bad, before they're clean. So,
sure.
It's cool. I'm excited to try some when Hank cooks it up, and I'm sure it'll be delicious, just like everything else he's cooked.
Well, that's how Hank and I became friends. I met Hank at a conference. Oh, geez, it was was a while ago in Utah. He was, really before he'd blown up and had duck, duck, goose and buck, buck, moose and, a lot smaller then. And, I listened to a talk from him and got up afterwards and got a chance to talk with him. And I said, we share a love affair of jackrabbits. Cause I've been out here, hunting jackrabbits for a lot of, interesting that I got into jackrabbit hunting through Jack O'Connor, and reading Outdoor Life magazines, when I was in college, and I was like, man, this is like, he was here. He was in Tucson. I'm like, I got to figure this out. Let me find him. And so I went out and, just kind of on a whim and, got some rabbits, and I'm like, okay, well, how does this work? How do I, break them down? And I was like, man, I started cooking them, and it was like, this is really phenomenal meat. I couldn't believe it. And so I was head over heels with it. And then to hear Hank, he's like, oh yeah, absolutely love it. And he does that long, slow braise on them. Oh my gosh, just to die for. I've had Hank's jackrabbit, and it's amazing. But
well, one of the things I think is neat about the jackrabbit is, so my daughters they got bow and arrows, and they've been shooting a lot. And getting a kid behind a bow and arrow and shooting at a live game is, it's intimidating and it's tough. They don't have a lot of opportunity to shoot at live game, big game.
Yeah.
But coming down here, they could sit here and get close shots to rabbits every day.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
You're getting them into, getting them outside and getting them familiar with, bow hunting and
absolutely.
And of course they can also shoot them with shotguns or 22s.
Well, and there's a couple of real added benefits to that. When you look at it, first of all, your kids are under 18, coming down. You're a non-resident. You know how much kids combination hunting fishing license in Arizona is?
Tell me, Jonathan.
$5.
$5?
All kids licenses, hunt fish combos, $5.
Whoa.
Bring them down. They can have a good time.
That's amazing.
But the other part is,
amazing.
So when you're talking about, teaching them archery and kind of doing that, I mean, we do that with a lot of kids now out of the Tucson and local areas. We have a world famous junior jackrabbit hunt, where we take kids who are just coming out of hunter ed, who haven't had a lot of trigger time. They're kind of new, and they might, it's varying degrees or whatnot. And, they're finally pulling grandpa's old 22 out of the closet, and it's got a lot of dust, may not have a scope or anything. And, we're teaching them how to hunt for the very first time, because everything you do with a jackrabbit, you can do with a deer. And it's hugely successful. I mean, these kids, we're actually kind of growing the sport of jackrabbit hunting through these kids, because they want to come back, and their families, the parents come back because they see how easy it is. But, what's even more, whenever I read the outdoor magazines and things like that, all I ever hear about is beagles chasing snowshoes, like up in the northeast. And I'm like, man, that's never been reflected in this, because we're out here. This is a spot and stock. I mean, I'm spotting, you're out chasing Coues deer, spot and stock with bows, and I'm spotting stock and jackrabbits out there in the deserts with a 22.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a completely different experience. There's not a dog. I've often wondered if a greyhound could catch one of these things. They are incredible. There's nothing that I know of that can catch them unless it's just a complete fluke and they're off guard. They don't care about bobcats. They don't care about coyotes. They just sit there and watch them go.
I would just think like birds of prey.
Well, and that's usually the only way I've seen them taken, and it's just by accident, because they're just hopping along and they don't, they're not looking up in the air. But I've seen these things take off to the next county in,
so they
45 seconds.
They ignore coyotes.
Oh, they're like, come and chase me. So I often wondered if a greyhound might, maybe 6 miles down the road, could actually,
Dude, seriously, these jackrabbits have swagger.
Yeah.
They walk around, they bounce around with attitude.
They do.
Like,
it's a cool critter.
It is.
Sure.
I mean, you're talking, how tall are they at?
Well, so on average, these rabbits weigh about 9 pounds. On average. I mean, we've had them up over 12 pounds before. They have,
it's just so big. And then with the ears,
the ears, and that's the thing. So the ears, these are some of the largest ears, because they obviously live in a desert environment. And interestingly, we were talking about Allen's rule. If you've ever heard of Allen's rule, this rabbit, his name is Lepus alleni. And Allen developed this idea that when the closer to the equator you got, the bigger your appendages, your ears essentially, became for heat regulation. So they're very vascular, and it's a way to transfer heat because you need to cool down. And then as you move north, so you have the antelope jackrabbit to the south with very big ears. And then you have the black-tailed jackrabbit with a little bit shorter ears, and then you have the white-tailed jackrabbit with shorter ears, and you get this snowshoe with these shorter, and it, it kind of worked out. It doesn't work for all species for sure, but this one it does. But yeah, those ears, the big white fringe, I mean, they're just, I love having kids hold them.
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing because they look like, they just got a monster rabbit that's coming.
They don't look real.
No. Yeah.
And I've seen jackrabbits.
Yeah.
Not of this proportion.
No. No, not even close.
Right.
I mean, when you guys came back today and, Michael called me out to show me it, and then he held it up and I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Well, and it's, and because it's called the antelope jackrabbit, there's a much longer history with the jackalope.
Oh, yeah.
And so this myth continues to persist about, and Arizona got tied into this like very early on through Wall Drug in South Dakota with the postcards.
Yep.
The first ever image of a live jackrabbit, not an illustration, was at Wall Drug because of a publishing artist in Phoenix. And so every year, I swear to you, every year in August, my phone will ring at least a few times. So some guy from the East or and their buddies are pulling their legs saying, we got to go hunt jackalopes. We got to go hunt jackalopes. And it's easy to mistake because it's called an antelope jackrabbit. Mm-hmm. And so this has persisted. And then I have to tell them the whole story about, yes, we have antelope jackrabbits, not jackalope. They're not going to have antlers. And then I have to go through, but we actually do have something called a snipe, and you don't hunt it with a flashlight in a bag in the middle of the night. And then they're like, oh, now you're pulling my leg. And I'm like going, no, it's true. It's a real bird. Yeah.
No, I mean, I could you see one of these for the first time and you think that you're experiencing some mythological creature.
Yeah. I'm excited. I mean, I just want to come back down and just hunt antelope jackrabbits. Because I think I would be more successful.
Yeah. Than Coues?
Than Coues. Yeah.
Cows?
Yeah, cows, whatever you
I'll
want to
tell
say.
you what. Let's talk about that for a second. Because we have been trying to kill a Coues deer since
Friday.
So has it been 4 days? Mm-hmm. 4 days? And it's been hard.
It has been very hard.
It's been humbling.
Yeah. I mean, we were all pretty optimistic on day one because we went to a glassing point and we were seeing bucks everywhere.
Yep.
And, we went on, I went on one stock.
We saw
with me.
big bucks.
Yeah, we saw big bucks. I mean, we all kind of moved in on some deer, and then we're like, oh, man, if this is how
and
the
they were
trip's-
rutting.
Yeah.
So they were all amped up and chasing does.
Yeah, it was cool.
Like, oh, man, this is how it is all week. We're going to slay some deer.
Yeah. And then we got hit hard by reality the next day.
The gray ghost lives up to its name.
It does.
Beat down.
Yeah.
Like whipped.
And I think it's important to tell people how we've talked about how big this jackrabbit is. I think we need to talk about how small a Coues deer is.
Yeah.
I
mean, how he explained it to me, Sam, the other day? He goes, it's like a mule deer fawn that has a fawn.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
I mean, literally it's like that dog right there. Yeah. That little dainty dog with horns. It looks like something out of a Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, they're just miniature.
They're
cool.
so small. I don't realize how small they are. I watched a Meat Eater episode where Stephen Ranella and Remy Warren were hunting Coues deer. I think right here in Arizona, right on the border like we are, or Mexico. But he finally shoots one. And I'm fascinated by just the whole idea of it. I've been watching these Coues deer, some hunts. I've been talking to friends about Coues deer for a while. Always kind of interested in it. And I'm watching this happen. And he shoots one. And then he goes up to it and he sits down next to it and they have the film. And I'm like, well, I had no idea. From the
Where's
camera,
the rest of it?
There's not a lot of perspective. You put a human next to the deer and you realize it is a very, very small deer, smaller than. And I've hunted Sitka blacktail on POW, and I've shot some small deer. These are on another level of small,
and it definitely plays with your perspective of
distance.
Yeah, the total surrounding. I mean,
you cannot rely on good judging yardage at all.
Because like on a normal deer, what would be like, oh, that deer's probably at 60 yards. The Coues is probably standing at 40 because it's so small. It's just closer.
and there's it's a barren landscape. I mean, there's some cactuses and some bushes, not stuff that we're terribly familiar with.
Right.
And so you don't have anything, again, for perspective. So I see a foreign, like, green plant, I've never seen before, and I see a deer standing next to it, and I think it's 80 yards away. And then we pull up the rangefinder, and it's 45, and you're like, freak, dude, that just seems, it's playing with your mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I pick on a lot of my friends who are Coues deer hunters. They just, because they get obsessed about it. And it's funny. I said, the best part about, usually when they really start talking up Coues, I'm like, I shoot jackrabbits bigger than Coues deer, But the best part of Coues deer hunting was, you can go out, shoot it, pick it up, put it in your pocket, and go home. There's some great old photos from the early days of Arizona and guys out here hunting and stuff. And what was fascinating is they're carrying these very old style guns and all that stuff. And one guy has a Coues deer that he's tied the feet together and has it slung over like a satchel. And he's going after another one. And
you could stack like 6 like that.
Yeah. It was a great idea to carry him out. I've used it before. I'm like, it's a smart idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're definitely tough. It's one of those, and that's what's really, I mean, for me, it's just kind of one of the cool things. And, so we should talk about the Ed Stockwell buck. So Ed Stockwell was a hunter out of Tucson and, lived here a long time. And so he holds the typical Coues deer record. And it is one of the oldest, longest standing records, for a Coues deer, in Arizona and Boone and Crockett. And it's 150, just over 150 inches, like 151 and a few, like, as a perfect symmetrical.
That's
and
giant.
It's massive because
I couldn't even imagine seeing that on the head.
Well, so, their racks are I use my hands to describe a rack because that's literally what it is.
Yeah.
It's just a little basket rack, but as they grow, it's just the mass that starts developing. And so you'll see we had several deer. So usually the mark everyone shoots for on a Coues deer, the kind of, I made it, is that 110 inch mark. Man, if we can get into the 110, that's a spectacular, even anything pretty much, I would almost say almost anything over pretty much 90 is worth mounting. But you start getting just even 10 inches bigger and it just dwarfs the next size down. Yeah. And we've had non-typicals that have gotten bigger than Ed's buck so far.
Oh, yeah.
But this was a perfect, just a nice symmetrical rack. And I am not sure that score will probably ever be beaten because obviously antlers are a function of genetics and food.
Yep.
And definitely an early time, in the 40s, 50s, Arizona was just in a much different climate scale because we're in drought conditions, pretty harsh right now. And so getting something that's really up there is going to be harder to do. They're out there, but I think it was just a different time. And to me, I'm like going, I almost kind of hope the Ed Stockwell buck stays as the gold standard of a typical buck. And guys will always chase the record, but
for sure.
I hope no one ever breaks it. It's like that deer should just stand for the eternity of time,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sam, what is your impression hunting these deer?
Do you want me to be honest? Or,
yeah, totally.
You should use a rifle.
Come on.
Hey, I love archery hunting as much as the next guy, but I think like turkeys were made to be killed with a shotgun. I'm pretty sure Coues deer were made to be killed with a rifle.
Hey, dude, I got close today.
I know. I'm probably just
close.
being too pessimistic, but they are. I mean, they're tiny. They're when they're moving around, it's not too hard to pick them out.
Yeah.
But if they stop, even when they're standing, they just disappear. I mean,
what would you say is harder, like finding them or stalking them?
Probably stalking them just because of the conditions that you're trying to get through.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's crunchy. I mean, it's all dry. I'm not exactly super nimble when it comes to brush and rocks and stuff. So,
but you do have some secret weapon footwear.
I do. Yeah, I do. They do help. So I took a pair of Vibram 5-finger shoes that I had, and I went out and bought the thickest fake fur that I could find, and I glued it to the bottom.
Which is not thick enough. I think he's going to need to use carpet going forward.
Which we did find.
We did.
Some real homemade sneaky feet.
Yep.
So there was carpet on the bottom with Cordura sewed to the top with the Velcro so you could slide your shoes into it. It was in a washout.
It looked pretty legit, actually.
Yeah. They're not quite as good as my Sasquatch feet.
Right.
But
I'm learning quickly. I think I'm learning quickly on, what works, what doesn't work, and how to figure this out. I think that it seemed this is how it is with spot and stock bow hunting in general. It doesn't seem to matter, at least when it comes to deer. When the more switched on the deer is, the more jumpy, skittish, alert they are. Of course, the harder and harder they are to kill. And I've hunted whitetail in Alabama, and those things are wired tight. Like they're just dodging stuff every now and then, just because they think something might be. A bullet might be coming at them right now. Boom! They'll juke left, and then they'll start eating grass, and they'll juke right.
They just think something might be watching them.
Yeah, it's like, and they are constantly heads up, jerked up, ears twitching, eyes wide. It's just they're always wired.
Yeah.
And these deer here are they pick you out in a way I have never been picked out. Like on a stalk, I feel like I'm being pretty dang quiet. And I'm getting very close, and those things, you're still 80 yards out, and they're like, boom, nailed.
Yeah.
And you're like, how? And so I think I've hunted Sitka blacktail a lot. The ground is so wet that you can just move silent. It's just everything's wet. Here, it's so dry.
Oh, man, it is so loud.
It's almost impossible you can't really make silent steps.
Yeah. Without a little bit of wind, you're just completely down in the water.
Today I got on a buck, and again, he's a 3x3 little Coues buck, and he was rutting this doe. There was another forked horn with them rutting another doe, and so these bucks are going after these does, and they are not very. When I say 3x3, it was still inside. It hadn't broke. The antlers hadn't spread wider than the actual skull. So it was like little tiny antlers, like just tiny antlers right there. And he was rutting that doe, pretty decent size. Like he was a lot bigger than the doe, but we got on that doe and I had to take my boots off and just go in my socks. And I normally wouldn't do this in the areas where you and I were because there's so many cactus. But wherever Randy took me today, Randy Newberg, it was like nice, soft country. And so I took those boots off and I walked all the way in, got to 40 yards on that buck. But he just wouldn't stop moving. He's chasing that doe back and forth, back and forth. And then he busted out of there. They still didn't know I was there. They just moved off, as far as I know, and then tried to get another shot on them. But they are, I feel like you don't have a snowball's chance in hell of stalking one if you don't have some kind of footwear that will help you be quieter.
Yeah, you need something to dampen that down.
Well, and you guys are here during coming off year, and so Randy for years has been bugging him. It's like, you need to come down. Mm-hmm. Come down and archery hunt. But everyone's heard the horror stories.
Yeah.
Of the rifle season, because at different times of the year, it's very different. Mm-hmm. Early season on the October, November hunts and all that, before the rutting activity, you can get near the spikes and forks and stuff. Getting close to a big one is near impossible. And so you'll hear the guys talk about, 400, 500, 600 yard shots.
Yep.
That's as close as you're going to make it if you're going to, and so, some people can't even fathom shooting that far. Yeah. In the West, it's maybe a little bit more normal around 300, but these are long shots. You want to flat shoot. I think a lot of the guys out here, I mean, obviously Arizona's a big gun culture state.
Yep.
And so, everyone's tweaking with loads and how flat and how far can we get this thing. But then you move into this rutting time period, the end of December and January, and you're getting closer to deer that most people,
Yep.
2 months ago would have been 600 yards for a shot.
Yeah.
And, obviously we're this year's been super dry. And that's really kind of, I think, maybe some of the issues you're having right now. Arizona has a bimodal rain pattern. And so we get winter rains, very good, usually. And so obviously, we haven't even talked about quail yet, but, our winter rains, benefit the Gambel's quail. So when it's literally, they're inextricably linked. When it's raining from between November and March, every time it rains, we're like, oh, it's raining quail. It's raining quail for next season. We're excited to see it and then we get a green up in the winter.
Yep.
And it's all these plants, a lot of the forbs and annuals and things that the quail eat for the vitamin A to get the hens get into breeding condition. And so it would actually cover your scent a little bit more.
Yeah.
As you kind of move around. And we had no July at the end of the monsoon season. We had, our July rain and then nothing until about 2.5 weeks ago was the first rain we'd had since July. So quail hunting season was miserable to start out with, not just because it was dry, but because the scenting conditions were horrible for dogs. Guys were, oh man, this season's awful. I can't believe it. And it's like, well, this separates the wheat from the chaff, boys, on your dogs. Are they really good enough with noses to work this dry ground and find you some birds? Cause it wasn't. And then finally, the rains come and I can't tell you how many people, we knew it was going to rain Wednesday. Monday, we were watching California. They're getting slammed, man. Oh, that rain's coming. It's coming. And so, immediately Monday, everyone's like, I'm taking Thursday off. I'm calling in sick. It's Monday now, but I'm calling everyone. You're going quail hunt, man. We're finally going to have some rain. Can get on some birds. So, and then we go into our absolute driest period in the spring for about, 3 months. That April, May, June, it dries right back up again and there is zero rainfall. And then the summer monsoons come in July and it's just torrential, kind of covers all the ground and all that stuff. And the summer rains are what we need for the Mearns quail. Interestingly, we have scale quail over in the eastern part of the state. Scale quail are about 6 weeks behind Gambel's in terms of breeding, and they really like spring rains, which in general we don't have.
Yeah.
And so if the winter rains are really good, sometimes they'll go early into breeding. If it's not so great, they'll hold out and wait for the monsoon seasons and go a little bit later. It's kind of a neat, thing to see with those but those birds. And so, like I said, right now, I think, some of the toughness with just how crispy the grass. I mean, I was walking, trying to get on these jackrabbits, which have these, they have ears bigger than mule deers. They knew when we left here driving that we were coming.
Like satellite dishes.
And so you can't be enough quiet for these rabbits. The Elmer Fudd, be very, very quiet.
Yeah.
We're hunting rabbits. These things already hurt you, man, pal. It's not going to work. And
that's how I feel about kind of everything here.
Yeah.
Randy went out today on this ridge line, and I went out on a parallel ridge line, and we were walking. Now he was the wind was blowing from him to me. Well, in between us were a lot of Coues deer that were laying low because it was really windy. And I've noticed here when it's super windy, they don't move around. They really like to lay down, I think, because they can't hear. And they don't like it when they can't hear. They like to have all their
tuck
senses
down to the bottoms and so
they just find a spot and they hide because they just don't like having that sense shut off. Which is, man, if you can find one in that wind, you can pretty much walk right up to it, like today. So today I was within 20 yards of multiple does because as they smelled Randy walking, because Randy stinks, and so as they smelled Randy walking by, they would pop up and try to figure out where that scent came from. And I'm on the ridge that they're just laying on, and I'm just walking parallel, like the wind's blowing straight. Randy to me, boom, deer pops up, and I'm like just hoping for something with antlers. And happened with 6 different deer, and just never got never saw a buck. But I was like, wow, that worked really well. And they were busy looking where the wind came from, where the scent came from. And so, but when the wind is like that, it's sort of like hunting Alberta mule deer in heavy wind. It's just so much easier to get up on them. Yeah. And you kind of need that with this ground. But I also found that, if you have some footwear or even socks today, I've hit my point of frustration with the Coues deer. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna risk the cactus and go in my stocking feet.
Yeah, you're a brave man.
And
basically sacrificing your feet.
Yeah, whatever it takes, dude. And yeah, I was so much more silent. I got so much closer to these deer.
Yeah.
So I think just the way we've been doing it with boots or like tennis shoes or whatever, it's just not quiet enough with these dry conditions.
Yeah.
So, but it can be done. Like you can get in bow range. I think it's not for the faint of heart, though. I mean, if you can stalk a mature Coues deer with a bow and arrow, look, dude, you're my hero. Like you are on another level of skill.
And before I came on this trip, Ben O'Brien, who works over at Yeti, was not helping my confidence because he had just got back from Mexico on a rifle hunt. And he was like, it's the only animal I've ever seen that once you're within 200 yards, they just know something's up. And he's like, man, if you can kill one with a bow, like, it might be the greatest archery feat in hunting. I was like, thanks a lot. Like,
yeah.
I've never gone Coues deer hunting. I've never been to Southern Arizona.
Right.
Like, I'm already walking into this, like, freaked out.
And it's pretty much lived up to those expectations.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it has.
I mean, the thing is we've only gone at it 4 days, 3.5 or so. Yeah. And we've actually I had a shot today. Yeah, we've actually got drawn back on a couple. Just couldn't settle in and get a good shot before they moved.
Yep.
But
and I've been close to several. Crawled in on some does the other night, and had the buck been with them still, probably would have got a shot. So I mean, there's been some opportunity. It just
I had that buck yesterday at 30 yards.
Yeah, that's right. Just walked up, the hill with you.
Yeah, we were parallel each other, and I didn't see him, and then I was looking the wrong direction. I knew I was around him somewhere. I knew he was there. The damn things are invisible. And so then I was looking around and boom, there he was. And we saw each other at the same time. I'm just hoping one of these times, like I see the deer and it doesn't see me. Yeah. But it's like
holding out hope.
So far, it's been simultaneous or he's caught me first. Yeah. Except for today on that buck, I got a shot on today.
Well, with multiple encounters, I mean, that's
you can't ask for more.
No.
So I think, like with my audience, there's a lot of bow hunters out there that listen to the show and are always looking for bow hunting opportunities. I think that this makes for an excellent bow hunt because it's over the counter.
Yep.
It's there's plenty of land. I haven't run into another hunter since we've been here. Have you?
No.
So you get it to yourself for the most part, and it's like you're at the beach every day.
Yeah, the timing is perfect.
The weather, it's like so relaxing.
Yeah.
In fact, Sam sleeps every day in the afternoon.
Oh yeah,
every day.
I have taken
multiple naps,
many naps every day.
I'm vigilant. Yeah. And glassing for deer because they move all day long.
I just let you keep glassing.
He lets me do it.
Yeah. And I just lean back into the crunchy grass and just catch a good nap.
So I think you make an important point there as well because, Arizona is a pay-to-play state. If you're going to get into our draw system, for rifle hunts and things like that, our license has to be purchased. Other states, I know they refund it and, if you're not drawn or whatever. Arizona, no, you got to buy it.
Yeah.
Got to buy it full out and you're going to have it for a full year. If you're going to apply for elk and antelope, or if you're going to apply for deer and bighorn sheep and those kind of things, here in Arizona, you have to buy your license.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you have it anyway.
You have it anyway. You can come down and archery deer hunt.
Yeah.
In January when it's freezing cold everywhere else.
And we should mention that you can hunt mule deer as well.
Yeah. This isn't just a specific.
We're just in primarily Coues deer country, but Randy saw 4 mule deer bucks this afternoon.
Yeah, so if you want to chase,
we might be going after those.
Yeah, so I'm sort of feeling like maybe mule deer are easier to kill than Coues deer.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So it's $160 for the license, and then you can buy the deer tag or not and small game hunt.
Yep.
and then you still have the license, so you can put in for deer and elk and antelope and all those. So
Yeah. Or if you're,
just because you have it.
if you know, some of these, and that's the thing is, it's almost like people haven't known about this.
Well, yeah.
And that's why we're trying to get the word out, because it's like most guys, we have a lot of folks putting in for the draw, the non-residents, and man, you got to buy a license. Well, if you already got the license, guess what? There's over-the-counter deer, and it's not just
that's the cool part is there's over-the-counter deer, fabulous weather, but then let's get into more of the species you could hunt here, because it's not just a Coues deer hunt that you're on here.
Right.
You're able to let's list off all the things that you can hunt at, including that monkey thing.
The monkey thing. So with Randy's crew down here, obviously, this is our spring prime time for Javelina, which is a draw, and generally we have a lot of leftover permits in this, and so a lot of folks pick up the leftovers.
And we could do a whole show on Javelina.
Yeah, and that season ended the day we got here.
The archery season.
The archery season, right?
We're in the youth season right now, and then it goes right back into the ham season, which is handgun archery muzzleloader. So you can pull your bow out right again, and then the general rifle follows it.
And we ate that. Hank Magic Chef Shaw made it for us, and it was phenomenal.
Delicious.
We cooked up that whole sow that Mark's had taken.
Yep.
And Pozole Verde. Just unbelievable.
Unreal.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
So people have been asking me, how does it taste? And all I can say is it's delicious. But I've heard other people say they hated it. So I think there's definitely some, how you cook it matters. Mm-hmm. How you prepare it, how you field care, all that kind of stuff.
Care. Yep.
And Hank actually has a number of recipes, cookbooks for this kind of stuff. And we'll talk about that one on the next podcast with Hank, but he cooked it and proved to me that Javelina is awesome.
Yeah. And that Pozole Verde recipe is on his website. I mean, it's easy to look up. You just look up Pozole Verde, Hank Shaw, man, it comes right up. And yeah, there's a few interesting ingredients, you have to go out and find, and might not be familiar with it, but it's all of his recipes are definitely like, not the expert chef tested. They're tested by just regular folks who he puts together a recipe, he sends it, he's like, make sure you can make this.
Yeah.
Does it work when someone's going through my instructions to make sure that they really get the sense of how this dish comes together? But so back to what you're saying. So, we have the Javelina. Archery usually runs for about the first 3 weeks of January for Javelina. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to plan a trip, it's right after the new year. Of course, you guys had the shot show and everything else going timing on, and so this time of the year is just packed with everything.
Yep.
But waterfowl season's still open. So if you have your federal duck stamp in another state, it's only an additional $5 on top of the license to get your migratory bird stamp in Arizona. Waterfowl season's open. And Arizona is the end of the flyway, which makes it very interesting. You're not going to see giant flights of just mallards or giant, whatever, just like trying to shoot 7 of the same bird in Arizona. You just don't, and that's the beauty of it. You don't know what's coming next. But for January in Arizona, this is the thing. Those birds are in full color.
Yeah.
And they look extraordinary. And so, we just yesterday.
How many ducks have been taken since we've been here in camp?
6. Yeah.
Yep. And that was yesterday during the last day of the season.
Just going out for
2 days
a
ago?
couple hours.
Yeah.
Well, so we went out in the morning and set up on the lake. We actually did decoys. It's not all just tank jumping.
Yeah.
We switched to that because it was, it just didn't work out. The inlet we were in, the birds were just going, we just set up on the wrong side and the birds were going to the other side. But, saw a lot of cinnamon teal, a lot of mallards, had a gadwall. And then, cause our goal was to try and get them some Mexican ducks.
Right.
Which is a species unique here to the Southwest. And, so that was, okay, well, let's go run some tanks. And so we did, Hank got one. Holly shot a beautiful full color ringneck. I mean, just a big plump bird. And then they got some buffle heads, and I ended up with a hen cinnamon teal off ours, and it was it's just
and
so.
I don't know how many we scattered a little body of water we might want to hunt the deer on, and we came across
Yeah, I mean, there
20
was,
ducks.
Yeah, and it was teal and Mexican ducks
Yep.
that I learned later. I thought it was a group of hen mallards. It was not. It was Mexican ducks.
Yep.
And then there was a couple ringnecks on there. So it was a plethora of different species.
Nice
That
mixed
bluebill.
bag.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was cool. It was very cool, and it was like this sort of remote little pond down the hill, and in a little canyon. And there was a crane, which, by the way, oh my gosh,
Yeah, we got to talk a little bit about
oh
crane.
my
crane.
Yeah.
gosh, crane is like my new favorite meat. It's unreal.
Yeah. Well, and that was exciting. So, I talked to Randy last year and it was like, oh man, I was showing him photos, cause these, just like giant jackrabbits, these are giant pterodactyls.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite hunts of the year, to be able to go after Sandhill cranes and he hadn't had any. And so when I was talking, a lot of you guys hadn't had any, and I was like going, well, I was pretty successful this year. I got a bunch of cranes. So I was like, well, let me bring some down and we'll do something kind of neat for the camp and let everyone try it and kind of do some, recipes and stuff. And so first night, I did it. I just salt and peppered the meat. We cooked it over some mesquite coals. I made a nice little 2-berry sauce out of blackberries and strawberries and a little bit of honey and all that and served it with it.
Dude.
Yeah.
If not
So
one of the
good.
best morsels of food in my mouth in forever. I'm not joking.
Well, and it's a surprise what it tastes like. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you guys.
Well, Ranella called Ribeye of the Sky when he did his episode on cranes, and I was like, I thought it was dubious at best, and now I have firsthand eaten them in multiple ways. Like, it's stupid good.
Yeah.
So then the second time around, it's like I wanted you to have what it naturally tasted like. Like I said, that was nothing more than salt and
It
pepper.
even looked kind of rare, like it's.
And yeah, you definitely with this thing you want to cook it just like your steak, nothing more than medium.
And is there no risk to that? Like it's
No, they're perfectly any of the waterfowl species. Really, medium is about from dove, cranes, ducks, geese.
they don't have trichinosis or other parasites or.
You do not want it. That's the reason why people don't like a lot of things. You'll hear about dove. Oh, livery. Oh man, I can't stand it.
Yeah.
People give me garbage all the time about that. And I'm like going, you're overcooking it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely overcooking it. I hear it with duck every once in a while.
Right.
Yep.
And usually I go, I hear people go, oh, it's so greasy. A lot of times that's the domestic variety that, unless you live in Central Valley, California, where these ducks just like pack on the pounds and they're so fat they can't even get off the water. I only get skinny ducks here. I don't get to see that kind of fat ducks here. So yeah, right around, medium rare. They stay so tender and juicy and they're so fantastic.
If you'd asked me what meat that was, I'd thought it was some kind of beef.
Yeah. I couldn't have even guessed. I mean, it's amazing.
Or like, some kind of big game species.
Yes.
So then the second go around, I said round 2 for Sandhill cranes. Had some of the breast left. I just did a 50-50 mix because this is a very simple recipe. 50-50 mix at 1 cup of Morton's Tender Quick and 1 cup of brown sugar. Stirred them together and then just coated them real good. Got them into a Ziploc bag. Make sure to put extra because it's going to extract a lot of that moisture. Put them in their fridge for about 10 to 12 hours. Pull it out. Rinse all the stuff that's out. You see a lot of liquid in the bag, after it's pulled aired out. Rinse everything off, get it all out of the nooks and crannies. Hit it with a little bit of pepper, and then I smoked it on some pecan and brought it in, and then you just slice it thin across the bias. And I've always called it crane bacon because it's just, like it's about as close as I can equate it to. And so, what you guys thought of that?
Oh, dude, it tastes like bacon.
It was
tastes like ham bacon.
Yeah.
Like
It makes me want to
good.
go on a crane hunt.
Absolutely.
Because I had never thought about doing it. I mean, I'd seen people go crane hunting, but I didn't
But
understand
and
why.
so you can relate now. Like I said, I thought it was important for you to taste the raw. Here's how it is.
And
by
you can
itself.
hunt Sandhill crane in Arizona.
Yeah, and those are draw hunts in November and December.
How tough is it to draw that hunt?
It's not too bad yet. It's kind of growing in popularity. I mean, you see it on the hunting shows now. It's really starting to kind of come into its own.
Yep.
And I'm doing my level best to try and open some more opportunity here in the state and get more hunters out. When I-25 is the dividing line for Sandhill cranes in a certain respect. So here in the West, we have the Rocky Mountain population. And these are the greater Sandhill cranes. It's the subspecies. And they're called greater because they're greater. They're bigger.
Yep. Okay.
Just these monsters. I mean, they get up to almost 7-foot wingspans. They stand 4 feet tall. Probably weigh, we did a check station this year, and I think the heaviest birds I was wearing this year that were greater is about 13 pounds. And they're the oldest bird in the archaeological record. That we find. I mean, they're the same now as they were 120,000 years ago.
That's crazy.
Very little evolutionary change.
Really?
So here, the Rocky Mountain.
What fascinates me about them is how long they live.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very, very long-lived birds. 20, 25, 30 years. In some instances, we've had these very long-lived birds.
They just got to be smart, switched on, or something. Like,
well,
how do they survive?
Well, and so that's the thing. It's so we have the Rocky Mountain population, which is probably about, I think right now, about 28,000 birds for the West, and these are the birds that you see, summering in Montana and Idaho and Wyoming, and a little bit in Canada and all that stuff. And then when you go east of I-25, which is the north-south splitter for New Mexico, the mid-continent population is there. And the mid-continent population, all up through Canada, all that stuff, mostly lessers. There are some greaters in there as well, but these are, a little bit smaller on average, probably 7-8 pound birds.
Yep.
A little shorter, about 3 feet tall, a little, all the same features. It's, unless you have the two of them side by side, it's kind of hard to tell in the air when they're flying.
Yeah.
But that population is about 500,000 birds. And so those are the big shoots you see in like Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas. And so Arizona and New Mexico are very special because the two populations, when they winter, cross in Arizona and New Mexico. And so west of I-25, you're limited because we have to worry. Our whole hunts are predicated on the Rocky Mountain population. So we limit every hunter to 3 birds only. When you go east of I-25, it's 3 birds a day. Up to whatever the possession limit states. I think a lot of them are at 9 now. So you can get 3 days worth of birds. And so, it's big shoots and stuff. But it's a spectacular hunt. I mean, it's so amazing to see. And that's one of the things. I mean, I wish I could take you guys out there. We have a couple of wildlife areas out in our southeastern, portion of Arizona. And it's amazing to sit out there to just watch 20,000 birds come off this little water desert cienega. It's not a very big pond and that we have out there. And this is a much drier year. So the lake is a lot more reduced, but to sit there and for an hour, just watch flight after flight after flight of birds come off this. Just unbelievable.
I bet the noise.
Oh yeah, the noise is crazy. Well, and as I've introduced some of my friends into sandhill crane hunting and waterfowling and stuff, we go out to sandhill crane hunts, and I say, look, when you start down this road of sandhill crane hunting, you're a crane hunter for life, because it just gets in you, and that sound will haunt you the rest of your days, because you'll always recognize that that's what it is, and it will. You hear that they do, and you immediately look up. Like, where is it?
But that bird is 120,000. It's the same, virtually the same bird as 120,000 years ago.
It's one of the oldest birds we find in the archaeological, records and the digs and stuff. They're still finding bones because it's historical. The petroglyphs.
It's like a crocodile, right? Like how they just have not changed.
Well, this migration has been going on forever, and North America, we're really blessed. I mean, let's really be honest. North America is blessed. We are the duck factory of the world.
Oh yeah.
To think back in conservation history when, the duck stamp started and things were at their lowest in the 1920s, 1930s. Right. To sit there and think, man, oh my God, things were horrible. All the big cities on the East Coast were built on bays and where all the migrating waterfowl go to. And market hunters were just scarfing it up, as much as they could.
As though it's an infinite supply. Yeah.
Right. And, guys came, I mean, Roosevelt talked about, hunting trips of a ranchman. He talked about the swans, shooting the swans and all. So these migrations have been going on forever. Historically, and so you find out where they are, and the tribes would use the bones and the feathers for, nearly everything. It's, still even to this day, a lot of the tribes find the feathers to be very sacred of different birds and their uses. But to be where we are today, where, ducks are at their highest levels they've been since we've started, recording and being able to survey. The Rocky Mountain Sandhill crane population being so high where we are. I mean, initially, I talking to a lot of the old biologists, they were initially like, Arizona was the first Western state to start sandhill crane hunting. Sandhill crane hunting started in 1961 out in the middle of the country, but
because nobody thought to eat them.
Well, the Pacific Flyway was, they had it was very small. It was very, it wasn't a widespread thing.
How did people not know about how good that was?
Well,
that's the real question.
Yeah,
built. And so Arizona 1981 had the first season in the Pacific Flyway. And it was like, okay, we can, let's have a season. New Mexico followed us the second year, and it starts spreading. I mean, we're still seeing it spread today. I mean, I think Tennessee and Kentucky just got their seasons probably about 4 years ago. But, so this bird's been coming to Arizona for a very long time. And, it's right in the heart of Apache country. I mean, Coati Stronghold is not that far away, and where Geronimo surrendered is not very far away either from our wildlife area. But it's just, it's one of these things in the Pacific Flyway was able to show, because it is a long-lived bird. This is our crown jewel of the Pacific Flyway in terms of we can manage this long-lived bird. It doesn't, it's not like they have like 10 colts every year. They have one. They invest in one offspring. It's a slow growing population. But the old biologists, when that stuff was started in the 80s, they were setting like just a floor, a minimum. Like, we just got to get the population above this level. That's what we're hoping for. And eventually it got successful and the ball's rolling, and we added hunting into it, and everything's been grand. And we got over that floor, and eventually now we're getting to the top. And at one point they set a ceiling, because you get a bunch of sandhill cranes in a farm field, I'm going to tell you what, they're going to tear it up pretty good. And so, to balance that out, we now set a ceiling of, we don't want the birds over this, so we might be able to take more once it goes over this number.
Now you have a sustainable population and not just hoping to get there.
And so to be where we are now compared to where we were, it's phenomenal. And I love to see that, a lot of these folks are getting into it. Much like any other waterfowl sport. I mean, I started out, it was just me and a shotgun trying to figure this bird out. Like, how do you hunt this thing? And then, now it's the decoys and the calls.
Yeah.
It's a gear driven sport. Like, so many others.
Like any other waterfowl.
Do you have any idea why they taste so good? Cause when I think goose or I think duck, they're good if done right, but this is on another level.
Well, much like, these birds that I fed you guys, I was sitting in a cornfield and they were coming to corn. I mean, that's, there's a lot of corn fed. They spend a lot of time. So how they got their name, Sandhill crane, right? The Sandhills in Nebraska. And it's a huge staging area. It's probably our closest relation to like the big migrations of Africa. You go into the Sandhills, and all these birds, before they go back north, are staging on the Platte River in the Sandhills. Yeah. And that number grows, and it's unbelievable. If you've never seen it, you should see it at least once in the spring when they're there. All these birds are staging, and they're flying out. Of course, Nebraska, known for corn. Yep. They're feeding up before they make the long flight back home.
Right.
And, I think, maybe some of what they're eating, like I said, that corn and stuff, that it probably helps out with it, but naturally, I think they're just they're omnivores as well. I mean, we've seen them eat, snails and eat small mice. And I mean, it's kind of interesting. They have a very varied diet.
Yeah. So we got the waterfowl. Mm-hmm. Okay. What about upland birds?
Quail, man. Arizona is
I know Wade's or Lingo, who is your coworker and also from Game and Fish and here with us in camp, but who would not daunt us with his presence on the podcast. He's not the most talkative until you get
start
him
talking
alone.
about Quail.
Yeah, then you start talking about Quail.
And I don't know much about Wade, but one thing I do know is how much of a fanatic about Quail he is.
He's a
I've only
fanatic.
known him for 4 days.
Yeah.
Well, joining us is the show stealer, the number
Yeah.
one.
Oh, yeah.
Shiloh, his dog, and so you can tell that Shiloh really doesn't like me at all. She's been sleeping on my bed all week, as Sam has seen.
Yep.
I get out of my bed, she jumps right in.
Yep.
Before
Even
I
though
get
she's
there,
got an open bed
she has
in
her
the middle
own
of the room.
bed.
Yeah.
She has to come jump in my bed, and she jumped up here on the couch, sit next to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Shy and I have been on a lot of outings together with Wade, and so here in Southern Arizona, one of the other great opportunities, Mearns Quail. Out here in this oak
Named after
Edgar Mearns. So this is a regionality as well. Their technical name is a Montezuma quail, but if you hunt in Arizona, we've just always these are the Mearns quail, and so
Montezuma Quail.
Montezuma, yeah, that's their actual technical name, but.
Doesn't seem very technical.
No, well, so it's what the American Ornithologist Union has accepted as their common name, but we call them Mearns quail. And so anytime you talk to a quail hunter across the country, if they say Mearns quail, oh man, I went and hunted Mearns. If you ever get in that conversation, they came to Arizona. Because in New Mexico, they're going to call them Montezumas. If they were out there, it's Montezuma. But you come to Arizona, it's that little regionality flair, like the whole, the fact we all call them Coues deer.
Yep.
And,
Right.
and these are Mearns quail. It's just a little regionality difference. I mean, Texas calls the scale quail. We call them scale quail. They call them blue quail. Or cotton tops. You hear these. I love the regionality of that.
Yeah.
Because it puts you in the time and place where they're, know something more about that information.
Right.
So you're kind of like, okay, that's, I just have an extra little tidbit because I know I've been there to the same place and time and stuff. So.
And so you can hunt quail here right now while the same time we're hunting the deer, we're hunting jackrabbits, cottontails.
Yeah. We actually.
Black and antelope.
Yeah. We were out, on the rabbit hunt and interestingly, we flushed some Gamble's quail down there in the valley where it's a little different habitat type than what the Mearns quail are after, and had a few just caught us off guard, weren't able to go after and chase them. But we were down in some country that you run into Gamble's quail. Just outside the hacienda here, we've got a big covey. Actually, I meant to say yesterday.
There's like 20, 30 over here
so it
today.
ended up, we first thought it was just one covey of 12. It turns out it's like 2 coveys, and it's almost like 30 birds roaming around.
Yeah, it was like, and I spooked him over here the other day, this afternoon when I was out here playing in the front yard.
Yeah, and Shiloh loves to go,
Oh, yeah.
She was pointing him up there. She's
back behind the house.
It's so cool when
Yeah.
you see a dog point like that. It's just neat.
She likes to keep in practice when she can.
So you
She's
got
not sleeping on my bed.
Yeah.
You got the quail, and so you're hunting duck. You can do that at the same time. Javelina.
Yeah.
So you kind of can walk out with a weapon, a couple weapons even, and kind of mix and match and shoot whatever comes your way.
Right.
Yep.
And then we have the specialty item.
Oh, yeah.
Where you guys.
The
real trophy.
monkey thing.
The
Dude.
Which I'm bummed that I wasn't there to see that.
The Coatimundi or Coatis.
That thing looks badass.
It is way cool. I get phone calls about them every year. Usually from tourists and people who've never seen these things. I get the phone calls. There's a troop of monkeys running around loose on the border.
Yeah, there's an escaped animal from the zoo over here. Today I was out there, chasing that Coues buck, and got on the buck and on this cliff, he was down below, and I shoot at him and I missed. It's not a proud moment.
I could tell you didn't want to bring that up.
It was, I'm trying to figure out let's just own it.
We'll just move past it.
I missed.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, they're fast, they're quick, and they're little. So it was a little bit of a longer shot. So I adjusted the dial on my slider sight. I got pins that go out to 60. So shooting a little further than 60. Buck is there. He doesn't know I'm there, and he's giving me some time to think about this. And I've thought long enough. Now I'm going to shoot this buck. So I shoot at this buck. And that buck, he hears the shot, like that string, but he still stands there. So I wish I had the camera rolling. He stands there and he stands there. And then it's like he can hear the arrow whizzing at him. Like, just getting closer. And he like, woo, moves forward, jumps after into the trees. And then the arrow hits the ground and he runs off. And I'm sitting there and I look down the hill and I see where he runs and he stands next to this stand of trees and kind of goes behind it. And I'm like, and he was with a couple does, and those does, they light out of the country. They run, and they're gone. They went to the moon. And I'm on a cliff, like I'm up in the air, so I can see this whole valley below me. And as I'm looking where that buck is, all of a sudden on this trail, I see this monkey, or what looks like a monkey.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you can shoot this or not. Like I'm looking at it and I'm not sure what it is, anything. So I pull my Rhino out and I radio back to Randy and all the guys. And I'm like, hey guys, I get Wade on there. Hey Wade, there's like a monkey thing out here. And he's like, that's a
Coatimundi.
A Coatimundi. That's a Coatimundi. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, hey, if you can get that, do it. It's, you're all good. Mm-hmm. Since he's game and fish, I believed him. And, I hustled down there and, I knew that buck was still nearby. And I glassed for that Coatimundi again, Coatimundi. And he disappeared in the tall grass. I mean, super tall grass. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of tall grass, by the way, down in this area where I was at. It hasn't been grazed or touched, and it was packed with deer. Some of those areas that are more heavily grazed or that are just more rocky or dirt, it seems like I didn't see the density of deer that I saw today. Plus, I never saw a Coatimundi on that stuff. So I want to go back. But this critter is big. I mean, it looks as big as that dog.
It's like a little bear.
Yeah.
With a big long tail.
And the tail though is like straight up. Like, I don't know how long it is. And it's like moving around and it's the weirdest thing. It's thick. Super thick. It's not like, it reminds me of like a meerkat.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it's moving around and it's weaving. And, it's cool. It's a long way off though. So I'm looking at it through the binos. So anyway, I go over there and I'm mostly cause I'm obsessed now with Coues deer and the fact that I haven't killed one or really gotten a good clean shot I get obsessive when I have a goal and I can't seem to get it taken care of, sure. Like achieved. So I'm obsessing. I'm already coming undone. Like this trip is going to wreck me. And so I got this itch. And so I'm sneaking up again in the socks.
Yep.
After this buck. And I get over to where he's at and nothing. And so get closer. And I get to about 30 yards of this deer. And again, he saw me same time I saw him and he bolts. He just starts taking off. And I'm watching him, crush my dreams. And so I do this. I don't know why. I was just trying to distract him. So I started doing like a distress call. So I was squeaking like a rabbit, just with my mouth, and I started going just all haywire on that thing.
Just trying to get him to stop. Yep.
And 30 yards to my left or so, 20 yards maybe, is that Coatimundi thingy in the tall grass.
Yep.
And I mean, I knew he was somewhere nearby, but I didn't expect anything. That thing came charging through the grass at me like it was on full attack. And it comes charging through the grass, and I don't know what it is, but it's barreling through. I mean, I assumed it was probably that critter, but I don't know anything about it.
And it's making noise?
And it's making noise. And yeah, as soon as it got to within 20 yards, it started going, and just growling. And it's coming forward, and its paws are coming up, and its head, and I see its eyes, and it's got like a mask. So it's got these like, you got to look it up, people. Like, Google this thing. And it's got these eyes that are in a mask, so they're like round circles white circles kind of around the eyes, and a cool mask on the face, which makes him look like a superhero villain kind of thing. And anyway, he comes charging up and he's growling, and so at that point he got so close. He got to about 12 yards, and I was stumbling backwards, and he was still in the tall grass, and I'm stumbling backwards. I hate to admit this whole story, but anyway, I get to full draw, okay, and it comes at me again, and it's really aggressive. It reminds me of a giant raccoon that's pissed off, which I've run into in the city a few times, and those things are scary, vicious. Only it's foreign, and it's got this tail, looks like a little bear. I really, and it's in the grass still, so I can't really make it out, its body. I can just see the face and the shoulders and the tail. And so he's at 8 yards, and he stops, and he's up kind of on his off his front legs like a bear, and he's back down, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, okay, this
is going to happen.
Yep, this is going to happen. I am going to make Wade Zarlingo proud. Okay? I shoot the arrow and I miss, folks. And I don't know that I missed because the thing did like this triple somersault roll sideways. It was like, and then it took off running. And so I was like, I thought he was going to die at any moment, run 20 yards and drop. I mean, you put an arrow through a little critter like that, it's gone. And I thought for sure I'd hit it because the way he rolled. I made a rookie mistake in that I didn't slide my slider sight. I slid up for the buck shot. I never put it back. Never reset it. So I shot over him. He's not a big target. No. And I'm depressed. Really depressed. So rookie. And, you hear people do that. I mean, you were telling me a story.
Yep.
I've done it. I mean, it happens. So I messed up. It won't happen to me again for a while. It'll happen again, I'm sure.
Every once in a while, you got to have a farce like that.
It runs off. Actually, I chased it. So and I'm just curious. I'm like, so the thing starts running, and it's actually not that fast, and not faster than Gritty. So I ran him down, and I ran about 120, 100. I want to say 150 yards. It's probably more like 120 yards. But I was running him down, and I was keeping, within range of him. It's so open here. You can just keep on going. I thought, well, I'll run until he stops for me, and I'll get another shot. I also thought he was going to drop any moment. I thought he was severely wounded. I ran that, and then he just went up a cliff wall, whoosh, through the little crack and seams. I'm like, yeah, I can't follow him up there.
I just wish I could have been there to watch you chasing a raccoon monkey.
Or stumble backwards in fear.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah. The whole thing just... the whole thing was a comedy of errors. Like anyway, so I had never seen this before. This little animal is really cool looking. Mm-hmm. Now I want to hunt a Coues deer and a Coatimundi.
Yeah.
Coatimundi.
Yep.
Coatimundi. So, I mean, I want to come here just to hunt that thing.
Yep.
And it's not like any animal I've seen in the United States. Like, why haven't I heard more about this animal?
It only occurs in these, most southern states. Is
it mostly like a Mexico thing?
Yeah. So oh my God. Yeah. So the Coatimundi extends far into South America. We're just kind of the northern tip of the range. And actually in Arizona, they've been expanding their range. Primarily, it used to be they were all locked into southern Arizona, but they made it up to the Mogollon Rim up above Phoenix and, have been spotted up close to the Grand Canyon pretty much. But yeah, we've had a season on them for a very long time. You're allowed one per calendar year.
I wanted to shoot one so Hank Shaw could cook it for me.
Well, and
I mean, that's what you do in this camp is you kill it and then Hank cooks it.
We're definitely
we're a little spoiled.
We're meat collectors at this point.
Here, Hank, cook this one.
It's interesting when people get Coatimundi because a lot of people have asked me, well, how do they taste? And I said, what's really kind of interesting is a lot of times deer hunters are the ones who shoot them and get them, and more often than not, I hear the taxidermist cussing really a lot.
Right.
They're usually the ones calling me, what the heck,
Yeah.
I can't believe this guy shot it with a 30-06 and I got to sew this stupid thing up. And, he's like, it's never going to look good. And, so you're allowed one per calendar year. Most guys get them to mount them just because it's kind of a really neat, odd trophy.
Oh, it's
to have, and
it's a wild looking critter, man.
But yeah, in South America, I do know the South Americans eat it pretty regularly. So I'm sure, at some point maybe we can, get one for Hank. And
I want to learn more about them. Like, how aggressive are they?
So they're really interesting. What's fascinating about what you said is you ran into one. Mm-hmm. And so a single out there on the landscape is going to be an adult male. Because the males tend to be solitary. They want to do their own. Now, what would have been probably scarier to you had you run into the troops. So the females, the females and the juveniles live in large family groups. I mean, like very large. Mm-hmm. I personally have seen a group as big as 150 roaming up a hillside, and you go, oh my God. Like, they were coming at me. Oh, they were coming at me. Yeah. And it's like, the evil monkeys from the Wicked Witch, they're coming at me. And I'm like, whoa, what, I don't know what this, cause you worry about it because you run into a male and they growl and all that stuff. A lot of times, most of the time, and that made real sense. A lot of time, most of the time. But
that's how I like to talk.
Yeah. So they go up trees. And a lot of times
I wondered if he was up a tree because he looked like he came from behind a tree. He probably came down that tree, and as soon as he hit the ground, he was on me.
Usually when you run into the family groups or whatnot, you'll find them in riparian areas where there's cottonwoods or big tall trees. And because it's, oh my gosh, let's get the children up in the trees, cause they're worried about predators.
Yeah. This thing was all by himself because I watched him for a while, just kind of, it looked like a little bear, like wandering through the trees with a monkey tail, like a meerkat.
And so, their tail usually when they're walking is vertical, as they walk. And
the grass would get tall, and I could just see the tail.
Well, and the tail looks prehensile because the tip is usually curled over, just like a monkey.
Yeah. But what's that big word you just used?
Prehensile. So the prehensile tail is what
does prehensile mean?
It's for gripping. It's for grabbing. Like you could use it as like another hand or a foot.
Oh yeah, it did move like that.
It totally moves. It has a little curl over the top, so it almost looks like it's prehensile. It isn't.
Okay.
But my joke is always I call him Darwin's grab bag. Because it's like we took part monkey, part raccoon. It's like a long-faced bear with a raccoon, and they're all just these really neat critters.
Even when I looked at pictures of them online, they varied from one to the other.
Well, they vary by season, obviously, just because of the fur quality. A lot of the take of coatis in Arizona tends to be trappers. Any trappers here in southern Arizona.
Makes sense.
They get one, and so they'll show up at the fur sale. We'll get a few every year. And generally, obviously don't go for a lot of money. They're really thick fur, but
I was saying that to Randy's like, so what does it look like?
It'd be good for the bottom of my sneaky feet.
He's like, what does it look like? How poetic too.
I know.
Apropos. I was like, it's got thick fur. Yeah. It's not like it's like a Coues deer has this little fur for the heat and stuff. I would expect something in the desert like this not to have that kind of fur. But it was.
So in the summer, is it a lot thinner?
They molt fur just like any cats, dogs, all that stuff. They put on the shorter coat during the warmer months and things, just because it's winter to stay warm. You've experienced the temperature swing we see from very cold to very warm during the day, but they like riparian corridors where there's water. I mean, that's where the big family groups are going to be. Yep. A lot of cliffy stuff,
this place had this place had the tallest trees I've seen.
Yeah.
And huge stands of giant trees, like tall, thick stands of trees, really shaded. I haven't seen that
not anywhere else.
No.
Yeah. And with the cottonwoods, I mean, generally you'll see southern Arizona. Like one of the things that fascinates a lot of people is our sycamores. Because you'll think of a sycamore, and then you come into Arizona and you go, hey, what's that big giant tree over there? It's super thick and tall and all. It's like, that's a sycamore. They're like, what? Oh my God. I'm like, they grow to super size here, for some reason. But, the Coati Love Monday love it because it's protection for them. They get off the ground and away from some predators and things. So every once in a while, a troop will be out there in the oaks, which are a lot shorter, these emery oaks. And we walk in through, and you'll actually walk underneath them, and all of a sudden they'll start growling at you. You like look up in the tree, go, oh my god! And it is like a Wizard of Oz kind of scene. You're like, oh, the flying monkeys are coming.
That's right.
Get me out of here.
And they growl like I wouldn't have expected him to be so aggressive. Like he came right at me, man.
Yeah, he's that's a big solitary male, and they're pretty much like don't screw with me. Yeah. I'm big and bad enough that I can tear a hole in you. So
and do they eat meat then? I mean, is it
no? A lot of times they're primarily being in these riparian zones. I mean, they're picking up any of the masts, like a lot of other things, the acorns when they're in season. I don't know anything that doesn't eat prickly pear fruit when it's in season.
Yeah,
and because we have such it's not just a prickly pear. Mm-hmm. We have several species and varieties of prickly pear in Arizona. And with different fruiting periods. So basically from June through October, there's prickly pear fruit that's ripe and ready to go.
Wow.
And then the mesquite bean season, a lot of stuff eats the mesquite beans, just because of that high sugar content I was talking about earlier. And it's, it's a great, heck, I'm out there eating them. I love them. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things like in the riparian zones. We get, some different plants and things like that. They're a little bit more omnivorous. But a lot of times it's more of a plant-based diet. So,
yeah, I wasn't sure if he ate wounded rabbits because he seemed very keen on this one.
Yeah, and they come into predator calls. There's no doubt. That's one of the interesting ways to harvest them too. So, if you're in the right area,
he was bold, man. I was like, is he going to run up my leg? Like, is he?
I bet that was freaky in the moment.
It totally freaked me out because
I probably would have yelled that.
I mean, as he came, I stumbled backward because he rushed so fast.
Yeah.
And he got to like 12 yards, and I was like, okay, he's kind of ready to assess the situation. And no,
he was coming.
He came another to 8.
Yeah.
and the growl was a little impressive.
Yeah,
so.
It's kind of neat because as you experienced, they can almost do bipedal. Getting up on their hind
exactly.
feet. And that's the monkey part where it's like, when they're out there, they
that
move
back
differently
half,
than a lot
they kind of have
animals.
a big butt.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get a little slender as they move forward.
And the claws and stuff, they're picking stuff up.
Randy was like, so what color was it? Dude, it looked like the back half was literally like chestnut brown, kind of darker. And then I was like, and the front half was kind of like blonde bear, colored, and then it had the mask, and then it had some striping, and I'm describing it to him
and everything.
Yeah, I'm describing it to him, and he's like, I'm like, dude, I don't know. It like has a whole bunch of colors, and it's like all like bizarre looking. Yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah,
I only feel like an idiot because I missed at 8 yards.
Well, the fact that it climbed up, probably this 150-foot cliff. I mean, you got to see how impressive they are. They're incredible climbers. But and they exhibit this weird behavior. Like it's not something you're just normally used to seeing when you run into one of these suckers, and you're like, wow, and so I get a lot of phone calls on them, and usually guys are more mad because they don't know that, like, I could have got that. Oh man. And so to be honest, save your taxidermist a lot of headache because they call me and scream.
Yeah.
If you're going to shoot them with a gun, make sure it's a small one. Because they're thin skinned.
Yeah,
they really are, or archery equipment. I mean,
they remind me of they definitely have a raccoon type thing going.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I got back here to camp and I looked it up, and Sam did, and they're related to they're in the raccoon family, right?
Yeah.
Related to the raccoon.
Yeah.
But they're way cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and what you haven't seen, and they're definitely down here, but they're more nocturnal, is our state mammal, the ringtail cat. And so it's a very small, it has a tawny, color for most of the body, but the tail is just black and white rings, and it's a big puffy thing. And they got these cute little, it's like this weird cat raccoon mix. And they love the rocky shelves and the cliffs.
Well,
and
even
all
the
that stuff.
javelina and everything. So, like, looking at those pig looking things out there, I feel like I'm in some exotic place.
Yeah. And I've never spent any time down in the South, but just being able to see all of those different critters is really cool.
It's,
I mean, that in itself is a cool experience for coming down here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so the exciting part about the difficulty you're having with the Coues deer, because I know it's eating you alive, and you're like, man, it's just this is so much more incentive that you're going to come back next year.
That's right.
We're going to hang out.
Dude, I am
we'll be back.
Yeah,
It's going to happen.
Even I was telling Wade today, I'm like, even if I kill a buck, now I want to come back and try to get another one, like a bigger one. Like,
yeah,
like now
even before you've
I'm
ever
screwed.
shot one.
I'm messed up now.
Yeah.
The good news is it doesn't really interfere with other hunts. Like, who else is hunting in January and
That's right.
big game, January and February, kind of time period. I went and hunted whitetail
Yep.
at Brian Broderick's place in Alabama in February, and the bucks were rutting and going after each other. That was a neat hunt. I've always talked about coming to Arizona and hunting January, February for mule deer.
Yep.
And then later I found out that you can hunt Coues deer at the same time, and you can use your tag on either one.
Yeah.
And I've always talked about it and haven't done it. The last 5 years or so, I've been planning, and I got to do this, and here I am.
Well, one of the great things is as well, because there's a number of units that open up in December for archery for this over the counter.
Yep.
And then the balance basically open up in January, which are a lot of the Coues units.
Yeah.
And so if you're applying for hunts, like you want to, get in for elk or kind of those things, you can come down and get your archery deer tag, and most likely you can get into that unit and do some pre-scouting on the ground.
Yeah.
Looking at the elk, but being able to take a deer while you're down here.
Yeah.
That's kind of that beauty of it. Like, you may not get drawn for a few years, but man, you can be really familiar. Like, instead of like, oh, this is this far off place and I got to do all this stuff. I've been, archery deer hunting this place for 8 years before I got my tag. Shot a few bucks. I know right where to go, man. I'm gonna lay right into these elk, and it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great pre-scouting tool as well. So,
Well, the other thing is, as we saw some big Coues deer. We've seen that.
Yeah,
one
that
on
first
the first day is a big buck. I mean, beautiful, heavy buck, heavy antlered, tall. Wade saw it with us, and he was like, after he got away, I had that buck at 80 yards a couple of times.
Yep.
But I thought I could get closer, get around this hill and get closer, and tried, but he gave us the slip. But Wade's like, well, that's great. He'll probably be the biggest buck you see. And it's like, they're here. There's some big ones here. And then Randy got pretty close to a nice buck.
Yeah.
Shooting like 40 yards.
Yep.
I think 30, 40. They're here. One thing I think is we're doing it a bit the hard way in terms of spot and stock. And we've discussed this. I like the challenge. I mean, there's something about spot and stock hunting that is special. Mm-hmm. Like, I also like ambush hunting. And it feels like right now, if you really want to kill, a Coues deer with a bow and arrow, you almost need to ambush hunt a little more.
Yeah, I think if you really want to increase your odds of shooting a buck, is you want to sit water, find scout water, find a water hole that a lot of deer are hitting.
Yeah, I think you can scout water. I think but I want to say this: there are so many deer. Like how many deer do we see a day?
Oh, I don't know. A lot. I can't even put a number on it.
One morning I saw 30 deer.
Yeah.
Afternoon I saw at least 10 more, and that night at least 20.
Yeah.
You're talking
40 to
60 deer a day.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a lot of deer down here.
That's a lot of deer.
And it's just finding that one that you can get on. Like I said, my hope is that you're able to come back for a wet year, because I know how much you love the spot and stock.
Yeah.
In a wet year, like I said, we could have had a day or two and they're usually light rains. I mean, it's nothing like the torrential monsoon summer rains, but getting a good rain on the ground, softening up that grass, having some of those little bit of the herbs and the forks coming up that, you can walk on and be a lot quieter. I think you guys would be like, oh, this is really impressive.
Getting some sneaky feet of some kind, rim rocks or whatever, like some pants that when they brush the grass are silent. A little of that, all that would help. But also, if you came down and scouted a little bit, and you could put up some game cameras on some different. There's water all over.
Sure.
There's also some pinch points, some cliffs. I really like the cliffs because you can see deer trails on the bottom of those, and the wind's good. You could sit right up there, and I just feel like there's gonna be a buck cruising by, especially with the deer movement because the rut is on right now.
Yeah.
And these deer are chasing. So they're moving around. They're not just holding tight in a little spot, feeding and then moving back to that. They are moving. So getting in a funnel or a pinch point somewhere and setting up and sitting is not a bad way either. So,
I think
but water's probably you're in Arizona. Water's probably the way to go.
And your buddy was like, dude, you're in Arizona.
Yeah.
Go sit water.
Go sit water.
But I think there's a lot
But I'm stubborn.
there's a lot of other tactics that we have not used that would probably make the trip more successful.
And one thing that would be cool is, when you're on the water, like the thing about tree stand hunting is you never know what's going to come by.
Right.
The thing about sitting in a spot like that, you never know what might happen. So you might get a Coatimundi or anything from birds to
birds, javelina, whatever. But, come wander in.
or your deer, and so you can you get a lot of options.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely a good time. Like I said, it's one of these we've been trying to put out there. This opportunity exists. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity
because for kids.
And how many people do we have here? I mean, every morning we're splitting up in 5 different directions to go all do different things.
Yeah.
In different areas. And so that's kind of the cool thing is, whatever your interest is, you can come down and, I don't archery hunt much, but I always put in for my elk points down here. You got to come down here, shoot some quail.
Yeah.
Have a good time.
I think it would be fun just to bring kids, and with it being only $5, it's almost like, why not?
Totally worth it.
Yeah. And to bring kids down here, and let them chase rabbits and javelina and all. Dude, by the way, javelina seem pretty easy to kill.
Well, so javelina do have a downfall. I mean, the biggest thing is just trying to find the herd.
Yeah.
Their eyesight is not that great. Mm-hmm. Their nose is phenomenal.
What about their ears?
They can hear fairly well, but I mean, with the sneaky shoes, with Sam's sneaky shoes, boy, I'm telling you what, you get right on top of them.
Because I got right on top of them, they had no clue I was there.
Yeah, and it's
like it wasn't that hard. And the other guys said they just walked right up to him, shot him. Yeah,
they just played the wind and walked in.
Yeah. I mean, playing the wind is a great way to do it, and you can get on pretty close. It's, I think one of the other things is because it's cattle ranching country. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed this with jackrabbits, we're on a ranch. And so, it's dry and crispy, but you clop in like a cow does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they kind of they're not too bothered. And then all of a sudden they go, wait a minute. I'm only counting 2 footsteps instead of 4.
Yeah, we should mention that too. Like, this is all public land.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But there is we're right on the border. So the border patrol is everywhere. Everywhere. So you feel kind of safe because the border patrol's like watching everything.
Well, and people who heard the horror stories from years past, I can honestly tell you, it was a little dicey down here. It was rough. And things have improved greatly. We're just not seeing the crowd. For a long time, it was at one point, Arizona had its own page on Border Patrol's website. And I was like, if that doesn't indicate to you that there's like our state alone, they had a joint task force just for Arizona because half of all drug seized and half of all illegal immigrants captured were in this sector of the border.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all right here. Half of all drugs. I mean, I'm talking about Cuba, Canada, any direction they could come in from. Half were being picked up here.
It feels like we can't go hardly anywhere without the all-seeing eye watching us.
Oh yeah, the eye of Saruman from Mordor is coming. And they're watching you.
And that's not an exaggeration. There are towers with video cameras.
Basically
the
like
landscape.
A giant camera on a turret. I mean, it's just like, and like it was watching
they
us.
Watched Sam shoot a cottontail.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
It was probably the most entertaining thing they saw that day.
And Sam kept waving at him like, stop it. They're going to take our cameras away.
But, yeah, I mean, a big truck parked at the top of a big lookout with that giant camera on a pole.
Yeah, and you see them cruising.
Wild.
They seem to be on every mountaintop.
Yep.
And so they're all over. And I think those deer, they're used to vehicles and the people until you like get off the beaten path, and then they're like, "Hey, that's not normal."
Yeah. You could probably just drive a white truck with a green stripe on it right through a herd, and they just like kind of part the seas. You could smack them on the butt as you drove by, and there wouldn't be an issue. And you get out with a bow. Oh my God, we gotta run! Get away from this guy!
Absolutely,
he's scary.
So I mean, that's been really cool to experience the Border Patrol cruising around. We've hung out with a few of them. And then they're a constant joke in all the video we've recorded because they seem to be behind every shot every night.
Yeah,
like Sam was changing the tire the other day, and 50 yards away is Border Patrol, and then we park, and there's 50 yards away there's another Border Patrol, and so there it's for real. But
and that's the thing is a lot of times, Border Patrol screwed up my hunt.
No.
They can't screw it up any worse than we do on our own.
Yeah.
And it's probably good.
They don't seem to, honestly, those deer don't, it's not rifle season, but they don't care about vehicles at all.
No.
Yeah, there's, I think there's always been, kind of the local traffic and stuff going through and folks going to they're heading fishing, they're going, I mean, the hills are crawling with hunters right now because everyone's trying to finish out the season strong, and anyone who hadn't filled their tag is working. So
tell me, where can people go to get information on, these opportunities that we covered in this podcast?
Well, so, definitely go to our website. One of the biggest things, let's say azgfd.com. We used to be a .gov. We'd switch to a .com. It'll get you to the right spot. Our new webpage, it's getting more and more user friendly all the time. I think we're on version, I don't know, I can't remember now, 8.0 or was it? Our IT people are constantly like trying to improve this and make it better because we were in the Stone Age for a whole long time. I think I
remember mailing in my applications.
Yeah. So we still do mail-in, but actually, and the deadline, the funny thing is the deadline for mail-ins now is much earlier than the online deadline. So it's actually tomorrow for elk and antelope, but the online you can get all the way till
February.
Yeah.
It's 13th, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's usually something like
we're
that.
We're trying to get full online. I mean,
February
that's where
13th.
But azgfd.com, azgfd.com, you can buy your license online. Kind of some list of information. The regulations are available electronically there. And I get, man, I mean, you get, when I first came to Arizona, I looked at our regs and went, what in the world am I looking? You just, you kind of have to get used to it. And so they're written it's kind of like they're almost written for the game and fish department and not the customer.
Yeah. If someone is having trouble, they can call.
Yeah. Definitely do call. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. People are always surprised. I've been on the podcast with Randy before, Ron Bohm with the Pointing Dog podcast. And then people will call in like, hey, I need to talk to someone about small game. And then I answer the phone. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. Like, you actually answer the phone. And I'm like going, well, who else was it going to be? I mean, I told you this is a two-man
there's
operation.
Only two of us. Yeah.
Well, I found like when I need to call Arizona Game and Fish, it's one of my favorite game and fish agencies to work with is Arizona. So it's always been good. Some are not.
Some are hard. Yeah.
Some are hard.
We try to be pretty responsive and things like that, but definitely you can call us if there's questions about it. Sometimes the season will change, commission will do something or whatever. And things have gotten, Randy's talked at length about the changes we've done to the draw. and how that opens an opportunity for more non-residents to be able to come in here and hunt.
And what is it like a typical flight in here? Where would people go? Like lodging. Is there campgrounds? Can a guy just do it yourself kind of thing?
Well, so interestingly enough, Arizona is the public land state. We're 60% public, and that's a mix of state land, BLM, and Forest Service. State land, you'll notice if you ever see one of those signs, it says, you can't be out here unless you have a valid permit.
Right.
Well, guess what? Your hunting license during hunting season is your valid permit. You don't need to get an extra permit from state lands.
Yep.
During that time frame, you can actually camp and park on state ground or BLM or Forest Service. Forest Service and BLM sometimes have restrictions about how many days you can be there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, it's about 14 days or whatever before. And then you can just pick up and move camp to somewhere else on the same, district or whatever, and it's okay. So you can definitely come camp out. There are RV parks, a lot of the locations. Hotels generally aren't too far away from most places. The main flights in, usually Phoenix is the big hub. Obviously it's the international airport and stuff. You can take short hops to Flagstaff or Tucson, on kind of the smaller, puddle jumper planes and stuff.
Yeah.
Tucson's a great airport. Flagstaff it's still a lot smaller community, so getting rental cars can be kind of difficult and working through those things. But, if you want to base yourself out of Phoenix, Phoenix is really central to the whole state.
Yeah.
And so it's in
Flag's
lots of easy
expensive
access
to fly to.
Yeah. It adds, cost to your trip. It's almost easier just to fly into Phoenix, hop in your car and drive
rental
where you need to be.
Yeah.
You guys drove the roads out here, to actually just get to where we are. We didn't need super 4-wheel drive to get to where we're staying.
You can kind of figure out where you want to hunt easily. And then from there, look for lodging. And if you really want to go hardcore, you can just fly to Phoenix, get a rental, and drive on down here and live out of your backpack.
Yeah.
Easy.
Marcus and
I did that on Prince of Wales Island a couple of times. And, everything I fit in my pack is what I bring. And I'm off.
Marcus and Kara stayed in the campground when they were javelina hunting. I got down here. Just happened to, talk to an RV park, said, hey, do you have a camping area? We don't have a trailer or anything. He's like, oh, yeah. But the beauty of that is there's a shower.
Yep.
There's a real working toilet.
Yep.
Well,
which is some of the nice amenities.
They also said
want.
That there were some of these RV parks around here
have trailers for rent.
Yeah. So you can, and it was really inexpensive. So very, very cool. If you can get a La Hacienda like we did.
No, it's a really cool.
Yeah. Airbnb is another great one.
I don't know if late season is the right term, but like a kind of a post season for most people. It's a really cool opportunity.
Yeah. Well, hopefully people that are listening have got a feel for some of the opportunities down here and we've piqued their interest. I'm looking forward to, now I got to shoot a Coues deer, like a nice, big, representative, beautiful buck Coues deer.
And you have to bring the kids down.
I'm going for a spike.
Yeah, well,
Start
there's
small.
that too. Like right now, we have no anything that's legal. We are shooting.
Yeah, there's no standard.
No,
and an illegal buck in Arizona, it just has to be erupted through the skin. The polish point on top. So a button buck is
we have
well within.
We're well aware.
Yeah,
well aware. I was asking Sam. I was like, "Didn't Remy kill a Coues deer with his bow?" And
I was like, "Yeah." He told me he shot a couple forkies. So, yeah.
So, I mean, it's a challenging hunt, dude.
Yeah.
Super challenging. I remember watching Ranella come on this hunt, and Remy went with him with a recurve, I think.
Oh man,
a trad bow. And Ranella was like, "Dude, if you can pull it off with that, man, I will be blown away." And Remy went home without a Coues deer, and I remember him on the show talking about how difficult this species is to hunt.
Yeah.
And he's hunted all over the world for a lot of different animals, and these are on another level of difficulty. So but he insists on spot and stock. I have some friends and relatives. My uncle is a guide in Arizona, and sitting in a blind and shooting a Coues deer is typically kind of how most people, it seems, do it down here. Do it with water, but I just can't shake the idea of like sneaking up on them like today.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Well, and glassing is one of those great arts that you learn about, definitely for hunting in Arizona.
Yeah.
Wear out the seat of your pants before you even wear out the bottoms of your shoes.
Yeah.
And it could take a long time.
Especially true with a rifle in hand. Because at that point, you really, I think we're anything that is male, we are going after it. Like, we're going after the smallest.
You might find an antlered female and drive
That's right.
It doesn't.
An antlered doe might even work.
So I could see right now they're rutting. So a lot of these deer, all these mature bucks seem to be up and moving. It'd be very, very difficult. Let's say they were holding tight and it was a different time of year.
Man, it would not be easy.
You would be sitting on your butt glassing for a long time. Yeah. I could see how it could be extremely rewarding, though, when you find a big old giant buck underneath a little tree and sneak up there. And
I think what I learned for glassing on this trip is, I don't know why I didn't bring them. I have a set of 15s, and I just was like, spotter and binos. I don't want to bring three things of optics in my check bag, and so. But I should have just left my 10s behind and brought my 15s, because I think sitting on a tripod, with a tripod and 15s and then verifying stuff with a spotter is the way to go down here.
Yeah, I've been using the 15s, and I'm spotting deer.
Yeah.
Fast. And then I need...
and then I verify.
Then he verifies with the spotter.
No, that's a doe. Oh, that's a buck.
So... But definitely, that's how I like to roll. I like to have the 15s out.
Yeah.
And usually what I do when I pull up to a spot is, on the glassing, I quickly scan everything with the 10s.
Yep.
Right away, just to see something that's up and moving, and just that's a gimme.
Yep.
And then I'll throw the 15s out on the tripod and slowly start watching. And then when I see deer, I need someone like Sam to put the spotter on it. And it's worked well.
Yeah, it has.
When we're together.
Yep.
But when we're not together, I didn't bring a spotter and he didn't bring 15s. Yeah. So we're just an incomplete team.
And I think that's a valuable point. The hunters who are looking to come down here, definitely 15s are kind of the way to go for Coues deer.
Yeah.
Yep.
The 10s are great in other situations.
You also really need a spotter because their horns are so small.
Yeah, on a lot of the bucks, without having that
so tiny
little bit extra range. I mean, even on the 15s, you're not going to be able to tell.
Yeah. I can tell there's deer on this hill, and I can tell. You can see quite well the animal, but those antlers are not. They're not like
they don't just stand out.
Yeah. Except for a couple big deer that we saw, and it was like, oh, that's a buck.
Yeah,
but
there's some obvious ones.
A lot of what we've seen are not.
Yeah,
that size. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks for coming on, Jonathan Odell.
It's an absolute honor, man.
Appreciate it.
This is cool stuff. So
yeah, I appreciate.
I'm glad to have you guys down and
hang
out, and
I gotta get me some
incredible
crane. I gotta get some javelina. Yeah,
2018 is gonna be a big year.
It is, dude. I'm going. First of all, I'm bringing game cameras.
Yeah,
and I'm slapping those suckers up so I can figure out what's going on around here.
Yeah. And see how many people are actually moving through.
Yeah. I'm very curious, like some of these, like today I felt like I was in some ancient ruins of, South American ruins, like all these rocks, and there's these little maze of stuff, and you can jump from on top of these rocks from rock to rock, and between them is just this maze of trails, and it just looks like something out of like a storybook. But these deer were running through those, and then up on the top of the rocks, and like on top of these stone where you'd see you'd expect to see a sheep or something.
Yeah.
There's Coues deer up there. peeking over the edge at me as I'm walking by. I'm like, you suckers. And I don't know how they know I'm there, dude. They're so far away. They were like 100 yards away, and that thing's like, ding, over the edge. I'm like, how did you pin me? I'm in like socks, walking so quiet. They're just switched on. They're amazing.
Yep.
But I would love to throw a camera up in some of these little narrow funnels where they're going, and just curious, like, how much nighttime movement is there? Are they relatively still? Is it what happens on a full moon? What happens if it's really windy?
Right. It'd be interesting to actually see the pattern.
Yeah, I would like to, and I don't have time to sit and scout, day in and day out, like because of job or whatever. So that's where the throwing up a game camera really helps. And I think it's like fascinating to learn about an animal. How many times do they hit the water? At what frequency? Yeah. And then also when you actually find a specific buck that you're kind of after, that takes it to a whole nother level, because then you're trying to figure out and you realize, man, that buck travels 3 miles.
Yeah.
And then he comes back over his core area is here. And dude, I'm going to get all freaked out over Coues deer now.
Well, that's good. I mean, you're going to be excited when you finally get the first one. Because then you get a chance to taste them. And,
I can only imagine they're so dainty. They just look delicious.
Yeah. This is bite size.
Yeah, they just look delicious.
And just, the whole deer fits right inside a hotel refrigerator. I mean, it makes it easier for the travel.
That's right.
If that whole deer doesn't fit in there, you're not trying. I mean, it's antlers and all. Just stick the whole thing in there.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, stay gritty. Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place and time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself. What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals and the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.